Welcome to Solving Rational Equations. Let's get started. The essential questions we want to be able to answer are what are the steps to solving a rational equation, and then what are exclusions? Make sure you answer that in your summary. So let's look at this example. We have a rational plus a rational equals a rational. We still want to factor. It's always the first thing you want to try to do. So here I could factor n squared minus 9 and get n minus 3 and n plus 3. Then I want to find the common denominator for all of the terms on both sides. So I want to make all of these have the same denominator. So on this side I can multiply an n minus 3 on top and bottom. And over here I want to multiply by n plus 3. So we're not doing too much different from what we've done before when we add and subtract rationals. So I've got a common denominator. They both have n minus 3 and n plus 3's. And now I want to find the exclusions. So that means what n absolutely cannot be, because we're solving for n. Okay, so we want to know what n can't be. And remember, with fractions, you can't have the bottom of a fraction be 0. So we can take our common denominator, set it equal to 0, because it can't be 0, and that's how we find our exclusions, what n cannot be or x cannot be. So in this case, n cannot be 3, and n cannot be negative 3. So those are exclusions. So no matter what I get when I solve this, if for some reason I end up with n equals 3, I will have no solution because they can't be 3 and they can't be negative 3. Alright, so now let's go ahead and solve. So we factored, find the common denominator, then we find exclusions, set those aside, and now we solve. So I'm going to put all of my rationals together. I have n minus 3 plus 5. So I added the left side, n minus 3 and n plus 3. So this is just like adding rationals. I did n minus 3 plus 5 over here. And then is equal to this fraction over here, this rational, which is 2n plus 6. That should be an n. Over n minus 3, n plus 3. Okay, so now we want to solve. Over here, I can simplify. That becomes n plus 2. And now we still want to solve for n. So in order to get rid of a denominator, remember I want to multiply by the denominator so they can reduce to 1. So if I come over here and I multiply by the denominator, remember you have to do the same thing to the other side. So then these reduce to 1, or we kind of say they cancel, I guess, but they're reducing to 1. And the same thing, it turns out the same thing over here. These will cancel also. So what I'm left with is n plus 2, the numerators. N plus 2 equals 2n plus 6. And I just continue to solve for n. So subtract the n and subtract the 6 over on both sides, and I have n equals negative 4. And I have to go back and look at my exclusions. N can't be 3 or negative 3, so I'm fine here. So that's my answer. So when I want to solve this rational, the answer is that n equals negative 4. Alright, so let's try this next example. Rational plus rational equals rational. We want to solve and find out what x is. So first thing, factor what I can. And in this example, I can try, but there's nothing to factor. So go ahead and find the common denominators for all of the terms on both sides. So in this case, I'm going to need to multiply this side by 2, multiply this rational by x minus 7, and then multiply this one by 2. So my common denominator was 2 times x minus 7. Now, I want to find my exclusions. Okay, so I take my common denominator and I set it equal to 0. I set each term. So 2 cannot be 0, which it's already not, so nothing happens there. Then x minus 7 cannot equal 0. So x cannot be 7. That's my exclusion, that x cannot be 7. So now let's go ahead and solve. So on this left fraction, this rational right here, I end up with 4x minus 18, and then plus x squared minus 7x. And all of that is over my common denominator. So I was just adding that, I'm just adding this side, these two rationals together. Then it equals 10 over 2 times x minus 7. So this rational. Now that I have this, I can simplify the top. So this becomes x squared minus 3x minus 18. So all I did was simplify. And now I can start solving for x. So I'm going to multiply by the denominator, so they will cancel or reduce to 1. And I do the same thing on the other side, and in this case it will also cancel and reduce to 1. So I've got 2 times x minus 7, and then it reduces. 2 times x minus 7, it reduces. So I end up with just the numerators. X squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 10. Now I'm still solving, just like I did in the last example, but I've got an x squared here. That means I have a quadratic, and I'm going to want to solve a quadratic by one of the ways we know how. Factoring, quadratic formula, graphing, complete the square. Almost all the times in here I would probably choose factoring first. So I've got x squared minus 3x and then minus 28 equals 0. Because if you have a quadratic, you want it in standard form so you could then factor it. So this becomes x minus 7 times x plus 4 equals 0. So I have two x's. X is 7 and x equals negative 4. So with my answers that I got, I solved for x, but I need to double check my exclusions. We already said x cannot be 7 because it will make a 0 on a denominator and you can't have that. So in this case, I only have one answer, which is that x equals negative 4. That's the only solution. This solution, x equals 7, would be called extraneous. So the only answer is x equals negative 4. Please go back and re-watch the steps if you need to. I know sometimes I go a little bit fast. So go back and re-watch the problems if you're stuck. You don't have to completely be able to do all the problems when you come into class, but you should have the basic steps down. That's all. Bye.